Kamala Harris has vulnerabilities in her record, and her responses to a Trump attack, quite apart from the possibility of incisive misogyny and racism, is to focus on growth, policy shifts, highlighting her administration's efforts. And certainly in a debate, Kamala Harris can run rings round Trump, but outside a debate, she faces these significant challenges regarding her current role managing migration and her past tenure as a prosecutor. Let's go into these for a minute because I think these are interesting issues. Critics argue that the Biden-Harris administration has not effectively handled the surge in migrants at the US-Mexican border. And Trump's line of attack will be to highlight the record number of illegal crossings and the perceived lack of concrete action to curb the flow of migrants. Kamala could argue that the administration inherited a broken system and emphasize efforts to address root causes of migration in Central America. She might point to initiatives aimed at improving conditions in migrants' home countries to reduce pressure on the US border. That's the same sort of argument that's being made at the moment in the UK by the new Labour government. When it comes to her past as a prosecutor, and again, there are parallels between Kamala and Sir Keir Starmer, her harsh sentencing has been criticised particularly for low-level offences, including marijuana-related charges. Trump could target her record, highlighting cases where individuals received harsher sentences for minor drug offences, potentially portraying her as hypocritical given the current shift towards marijuana legalisation. She might acknowledge the criticisms, noting that her views have evolved. She could emphasise her support for criminal justice reform and her role in advocating for measures like the First Step Act, which seeks to reduce mass incarceration and reform sentencing laws. But of course, as a prosecutor, she is acting within the framework of the law as it exists at the moment, not the law necessarily as she may want it to be. Her changing positions on various issues such as healthcare and criminal justice have also led to perceptions of inconsistency, and Trump may portray her, therefore, as a politician who lacks firm principles and flip-flops on key issues to suit political convenience. She could counter this by highlighting her adaptability and her responsiveness, but she should get that argument in first. Her ability to react to new information and to changing norms in society. She might argue that evolving views are a sign of growth and engagement with the electorate's concerns. Her demeanour and her public appearances, including her laughter, have been the object of ridicule by the Trump brigade, and Trump might mock her and attempt to paint her as unpresidential or unserious. She could deflect these personal attacks by focusing on substantive issues and criticizing Trump for engaging in ad hominem attacks rather than addressing policy. She might also, and I would suggest this would be the better route, she might use humor to her advantage, turning criticisms of her laughter into a sign of her relatability and her humanity. In a direct confrontation, Trump will struggle to sustain substantial attacks beyond mockery because of his own vulnerabilities in similar areas. For example, his administration faced significant criticisms over its own handling of migration and criminal justice. And she might emphasize concrete policy achievements and future plans, particularly in areas like criminal justice and like the development of justice. But I think she should acknowledge past controversies while pivoting to her current stances and her current support of reform. And as for Trump, I think the more prepared the Harris campaign is, the more difficult it's going to be for Trump to challenge it, because the targets are few. They are big, but I think Trump is going to look the more foolish if he resorts to personal attacks and ridicule to undermine Kamala's credibility, because in the end it ends up looking petty, and Trump needs to be aware of the one thing he's got over Kamala is that he is a president. She is not. And he needs to appear presidential. The more petty he looks, the more unpresidential he appears, and the stronger Kamala looks. And Kamala, after all, is a sitting vice president rather than an ex-president, no matter how much the convention is that one calls an ex-president president. Trump is still somebody who failed to get re-elected. Kamala hasn't had that situation yet. So there's all to play for it. But those two key issues, the overzealous prosecutions and the migration problem, she needs to get ahead of that debate before it becomes an issue in the Trump campaign.